and it is time for our extended Beeper Show.
Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Oregon's longest-running radio talk show, The Beeper Show, on KNND. The views and opinions you'll hear expressed during the following presentation do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, employees, or advertisers of this station.
Good morning and welcome to the Beeper Show for the 5th day of November 2025. Almost 11 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock, Cameron Reiten, you found the best conversation in hometown talk radio. You can listen to us 4 different ways on the air. It's AM 1400 or FM 99.7. Stream live via the KNND Facebook page. You can also pick us up on the South Lane TV translator. Our home there, channel 47.4. We are the audio that runs along your visual program guide, showing you what's available for viewing on those free digital channels of television that are available to us in the Cottage Grove area. Well, you're getting a double dose of the Beeper Show this morning because we're going to get a look at a couple of our East Lane County Commissioner candidates vying to unseat Heather Buch next year, our current representative on the board, the East Lane seat. And coming up a little bit later on at 9 o'clock, Bob Zybach is going to be with us, but we're going to start off with Jake Pelroy. Jake has been a guest on the program, most recently to discuss the IMRF, or Clean Lane Recycling Facility. But Jake, you made a big announcement here at a meeting last night, and you are jumping into the political arena. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cameron.
Good morning. Thanks for being with us, by the way.
Always good to be here. So yeah, I've been on this show a few times over the years, and mostly about the clean lane issue. And I've talked about previously kind of how that issue came to be in front of me, and me being involved with that, as my parents own a garbage business out in the Veneta area, and throughout these years, post my military service, I've been involved with public policy, helping people run for office or helping groups do political things. And so this particular clean lane issue kind of brought two passions of mine together, my family and their business, which I grew up in, and as a summer jobs, being a garbage hauler for them and recycling person, and then public policy. And so I've kind of been doing the public policy side for in the background for about 16 years, and this issue came to me, and
that kind of galvanized you to jump into this.
Yes, and it forced me to do things that I don't normally do, like come on the Beeper Show and talk to you for extended periods of time, or speak to the media, or testify in front of. And it's usually that's the role of a candidate or an elected official.
Sure.
And some people started mentioning, "Mill, why don't you think about running?" And I've heard that over the years, and I kind of said, "Yeah, no, I'm not really interested in that." And then I was on a long drive with my wife, and I said that, and she said, "Well, why don't you?" Kind of gave me a challenge. And I really started thinking about it upon that point. She made some really good points about that, and talked to a lot of people that I trust, prayed about this decision, and ultimately felt like it was the right decision for me to do. And it involves me not doing what I normally do in order to do this. So I'm again taking a risk that on jumping into this, but I feel like it's the right risk, and I think it's the way that God is calling me to go.
All right, so Jake, I definitely want to dive into the policy stuff, but before we get there, tell us a little bit about yourself. You mentioned that you have some military service in your background.
Yep. I grew up Veneta area, went to Elmira High School.
Okay.
A year after year after high school, I joined the Marines. Didn't really have much thought about which military service I wanted to go into. I just got I had a moment where I was an 18-year-old man where I felt like I needed to serve my country. There was the first Battle of Fallujah was going on, and a lot of my
so that was in the early 2000s.
2004 was that was when it was, and I graduated 2003. 9/11 was very galvanizing for a lot of people around my age to serve their country. Elmira had many people that joined the military from there, and I'm sure a lot of other high schools did as well around that time. And went into the Gateway Mall, and there was the only recruiting office that was open was the Marines, and there just happened to be a Marine with dress blue standing in the window, and he was waving me in. I look around and realize he's waving at me, and walk in there, and he says, "How can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I want to serve my country." And they said, "Well, you came to the right place." And then later on, after boot camp, I found out that both of my grandpas were Marines in World War II, and so I felt like, wow, this was really meant to be that I was in the Marines.
So you're carrying on a family legacy,
and I didn't even know it.
Wow.
And served as an intel analyst, and I did go to combat 3 times, went to Iraq, Fallujah 2.5 times, and then the second half of the third deployment, it was Ramadi. And then after 5 years, I got out and went to school, the U of O, and that's kind of when I started working on part-time work in public policy and campaigns.
You started all the way back
2010.
When
that was in 2010, so close to 16 years ago. And the first campaign that I was involved with was West Lane County Commissioner Jay Bozovich. So I didn't really know what county commissioners did, but I knew the area, grew up in that area, and so felt like it was a good fit, and I was making a little bit of money while going to college.
And Commissioner Bozovich did serve a number of years on the commission.
12 years.
12 years.
Yep. Yeah. And so we won that race, and so people that were involved with campaigns kept on saying, "Hey, well, there's this guy that's going to school at U of O that might take up some campaign work," and so I kept on getting called, and I realized I had a career. So I've been doing that for the last 16 years, and it's been really fulfilling. I had just different roles helping out people. I that's part of how I get paid, but I also do a lot of work just helping out friends and family. The Lane County Garbage and Recycling Association, that has been about 2 years. About 2 years, and I don't get paid in that role. I feel like it's important to me to be involved with that. My brother is buying the business from my parents, and he's my little brother, and I know how hard it was for my parents to build that business. And this clean lane thing is extremely detrimental to the garbage haulers, but it also is raising cost of living to everyone who does business, who lives and has garbage service in Lane County.
Well, in addition to that, it's also playing havoc with the county budget, because they've spent a lot of money on a facility that they're not going to be able to build on the land they bought to build it on.
That's what it appears like.
So now they're going to have to come up with a plan B.
Yep. So the piece of land that they originally purchased is in Goshen, and it wasn't zoned correctly for waste-related facilities, and this was known before they purchased it. They made comments. County staff made comments about it's not zoned correctly. Well, my association challenged that they weren't supposed to be putting this here, and their permit was denied in earlier this year to build on that or to do the special use permit. and now that denial has been appealed to the State Land Use Board of Appeals. And we probably should get a decision here early next year. But in the meantime, the county has recently given signals that their plan B for Clean Lane is to put it on at Short Mountain. And so one of the whole points about Clean Lane was to help increase the landfill space. But putting this mixed waste processing facility, large facility, on the landfill, you would think would take up part of the landfill and take up space. So again, this process has been completely screwed up. There was multiple times where they had opportunities to jump off, but there was a sense of urgency that staff and the three county commissioners, my county commissioner Heather Buch, were rushing to make this decision, and they signed a contract with this company. So the county is not going to come out of this unscathed, as you talked about. We're paying for it right now. We're paying for all the mishaps, and they're going to have to figure out what to do with this machine, because they signed a 25-year contract with this company.
Right. So if elected and you were a member of the Board of Commissioners, what would you think would be the logical steps for the county to take to, I guess, minimize the negative impacts of this?
Yeah, I think a lot of those details will be discussed as far as what options we have with county legal staff. I think that's really where it's at right now. I also think that you need a county commissioner, you need a board majority to say that that's the direction that they want to go. I'm not sure that our county commissioner actually wants to cut ties with this machine right now in this contract. So it's a difference of, are we going to pay several tens of millions of dollars where we're at right now, or hundreds of millions of dollars? That's the road that she's leading us down. If there's not a board majority on there that says, hey, we don't want this anymore, we got to figure out how to get off, it's going to be a lot more expensive later on.
So it's been hypothesized, Jake, that maybe the best way out of this, and it seems kind of ridiculous on its face, but people have said, well, maybe the best way out is just to build the facility and not use it.
Yep, I've heard that before.
And what do you think? Is that a viable?
Well, it essentially just cuts off the cost at just purchasing the equipment rather than running the equipment, because there is some costs associated with running the equipment. I mean, in a part of the contract, there is minimum amounts of garbage that this machine is supposed to get, and I don't think that the county completely realizes that. I don't think that they have enough garbage to run this machine that they've signed up for in the contract, and therefore would owe penalties each year for how much garbage that they didn't have. And part of the problem with that model is that it says, here we are, the state of Oregon, Lane County, we encourage more recycling, and we encourage people to do things with their green waste. And that's taking materials out of the waste stream. So this whole machine is all based on how much is in the traditional garbage waste stream. So as we recycle more and more things, plastics, we've just the state of Oregon has just put a big initiative in front that says, every person should be able to recycle plastics. Well, that takes weight out of the waste stream. So it's inherently a bad system to set up. And so the county has talked about, in order to make up the lost garbage that they currently have, there's been some cities that have diverted their garbage elsewhere for cheaper rates. The county is talking about importing garbage from other counties now. And again, that cuts against, hey, we want to help preserve our landfill.
Right. It's kind of ironic because what started all this was the idea that, hey, we have to extend the life of Short Mountain landfill.
That's correct. Yeah, and you mentioned the budget earlier. There was a budget note from the budget discussions. Anyone can check this out in the Lane County budget, saying that they're have lost about $4 million of revenue due to lost garbage. I think it's important that for people to know that county staff assured the county commissioners that this wouldn't happen. And the garbage hauler said, this is happening currently with your garbage stream. There were cities that have never taken to Short Mountain landfill. And I expressed that this is a common practice for waste hauling companies to move garbage from point A to point B to get the best rate. Because if you can save customers money, then that helps you keep customers. It's pretty simple.
Jake Pelroy is with us. He is a candidate for the East Lane seat on the Board of County Commissioners. If you want to jump in with a question, feel free to join the conversation at 541-942-5548. Jake, we need to take a quick break, so let's do that, and we'll come back and talk some more. We have an extended Beeper Show this morning, 53 degrees outside the KNND studios. We're talking with East Lane County Commissioner candidate Jake Pelroy today, and Bob Zybach is going to join us a little later, who is another candidate vying for that seat. And you are more than welcome to join the conversation at 541-942-5548. Jake, I know you're really passionate about the clean lane, but there's some other issues I want to jump into a little bit as well this morning. Lane County, beyond the clean lane, is going to be experiencing some budget challenges. They're looking at how to fund public safety, rural patrol. They've got a public safety task force that's come out with some recommendations. And that probably means that county taxpayers are somehow going to be asked to contribute to that. And there's other areas of the county's budget that the leadership is looking for ways to plug some holes right now. So what are your thoughts about how we should prioritize and try to address those issues?
Yeah, I think the public safety issue is really, really important. It's the issue just ties back to the federal forest with the ONC lands. That's how we had money throughout the years. They've got a lot of money, goes straight into the general fund. Half of the sales of the ONC had gone into there, and then the spotted owl hit. And that's kind of where things started to decline. There were some secure rural schools payments for several years. And I think the federal administration is looking at fixing some of the ONC stuff, but they've been a little bit slow on that from what I'm hearing. But there has been a little bit more activity on that front. I think the community has shown that they support public safety. They've been there's been multiple levies that the county has put out throughout the years, asking for more money because of the loss of the timber receipts. And the only one, there's been two that have been passed, and one has been for the jail, and the other one has been for parks. This new public safety funding task force, there was a lot of good people on that public safety funding task force, but they were given a goal to find the best way to try to make up some funds in a different way on to plug some of our public safety gaps. And one of the proposals was a payroll tax, 1% payroll tax. And so the board would have to make the decision to send that out to the voters to see if the voters want to pay for that. I can tell you that's going to be a tough lift. 0.5% is a tough lift. 1% is an extremely tough lift, and I don't see them doing it. I've heard that they're doing some survey work to figure out if that's palatable with the voters out there. You just saw some of the other public safety levies get shot down here in Lane County. I think that people with their cost of living increases are hitting their limits here.
And certainly with the possibility of the transportation bill.
That's right.
At the state level.
That's right. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of efforts underway to make sure that petitions and petition gatherers are ready once the governor chooses to sign the ODOT tax to get that to be in front of the voters, but they got a tight timeline on that to be able to have a voice on that. But I know you didn't want me to go back to Clean Lane, but Clean Lane is going to cost the county $11.2 million yearly. Okay, that's new revenue. Garbage haulers, when came back to the Board of County Commissioners, and we stated that we'd be okay with it'd be a little bit more palatable if they chose to take some of those tipping fee increases and put it towards public safety. Again, a county that has 3 deputies that patrol our county's the size of Connecticut is unacceptable. I feel like I've heard that we're going to lose a deputy. They might be able to find some funds for that, but $11.2 million would pay for 38 deputies. That just kind of tells you the priorities of my commissioner, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I think it's unacceptable to put mixed waste processing ahead of public safety.
And how do you feel about putting questions before the voters when tax increases are on the boards?
I think it's absolutely crucial to do that. You need to have the buy-in of the public, and it's all about the system of government that we have, and that's who I would look to for answers. If you guys want to pay for X, Y, and Z, we'll put it in front of you. There is boundaries of what there's budget that the county has currently. There is that's their limit. I mean, I think it's absolutely crucial. I would point out, and this is one of the things I keep on forgetting, but I shouldn't. 2 of the 3 county commissioners wanted to refer the Clean Lane proposal to the voters, and Heather Buch voted to deny the public's right on that vote. And then,
so you would have voted to let it go to the people if you had been in Commissioner Buck's shoes at that point.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I wouldn't have gone forward with the proposal already, but on that particular on that particular vote, I would have voted to send it to the people. It's the largest. It's the most expensive public works project in Lane County history.
Because oftentimes you get the argument from the kind of pro-government camp that says, well, that's why we elect commissioners. That's why we elect city councilors, so that they can go through all of the reams of paperwork, and they can hear from all the experts and get into the minutiae of this. They have the information. They should be the ones to get the final say, and not the people. What do you say when you hear that argument?
I mean, it works for some things. I think that sometimes it's also. I've learned throughout my years that politicians like to grab to some argument one way or the other on policy and where they stand on things. Doesn't need to be accurate. I think that that sometimes is disingenuous.
If you've just joined us, we have East Lane County Commissioner candidate Jake Pelroy with us, and if you would like to be a part of the conversation, you're more than welcome to do that. 541-942-5548. So are you feeling like people are just a little bit too squeezed right now as far as being asked to give government new taxes, new fees, different new revenue streams, as it's kind of euphemistically put at this point? So if we have to fill gaps in the budget, how would you advocate us doing that if you if you think we are squeezed.
Yeah, no, I do. I think that there's a bunch of squeezing that's going to happen up at the Oregon legislature here soon, with all of the federal money that is leaving. I mean, we've built our government programs based on receiving federal monies. And so they're going to look to us. They have a lot more mechanisms to tax us than county government does. They have cat tax, they got income tax, they got a lot of different fees that they can add on, gas tax. Mm-hmm. I would say, I am going to look for positive economic activity to happen. That will then bring up the property tax rates that will help out fund the county government. One of the things that has been I've heard is the most complained about with Lane County is their land management division. There's not a ton of people that deal with land management, but if someone it lives outside in the country and they've tried to do something with their property, they have a story to tell. And you would think that a county that needs tax revenue might want to help improve some of the properties that are outside, which would increase the assessed value of the properties and would help bring in more tax revenue. So it is a crucial part to I think people live out on farms. Farming is extremely difficult on its own with price changes and employment and all this other regulations that gets put on it. And then they can't really do anything to diversify their land. They can't build another house on there. It's difficult to, land management division is something that I'd definitely look to fix. And, the Board of County Commissioners they've gone through, they hired some consultants to do an audit to say, hey, how can we streamline this? How can we improve our processes to help out the people that are applying? And Heather Buch has been a roadblock to those changes.
How so?
So when they gave the presentation, it sounded like these two gentlemen that were hired by the Board of County Commissioners to help Lane County, she had a list of questions that were written by people who don't want any growth on the outside. There's a group called Land Watch Lane County that appeal people's applications where they feel like they have a way of holding up the process if they want to build a home on a piece of land where they deem it as where they have a foothold. She had questions from them, and there was times where it seemed as though it was these guys were criminals and being yelled at by two of the county commissioners, including Heather Buch. So that would be what I would say. And then also there was a gentleman. There's been people in front of the board who have tried to build homes in various places, and she's always opposed those.
And there's been people that have been battling with the land management division literally for years.
Yep, and they have to appeal to LUBA. Then LUBA says, well, it turns out you can build. Lane County is known around the state in a bad way for building. Because
the county will often tell you that they're just interpreting the state land use laws.
Yep.
That it's not a county problem, it's a state problem. So what are some practical steps that we could take locally, or that you could as a county commissioner, provided you had at least two other votes that were with you, to fix some of the problems?
There'd be a couple things I'd do.
Okay.
Is you actually just have to look at what other counties are doing. Because if that's true, why isn't there the same kind of problems in Marion and Douglas County and Lane County? There's not those kinds of problems. That's what I would do. And then when there would be a new regulation that would come along, I would look at what the staff is proposing and what the new law says. And if they've gone beyond where the new law comes, I would send staff back. hey, look, follow what is written here as the state law. You don't have to go beyond what the state law has told you to do.
And you think the county is doing that in some cases at this point?
Absolutely. There was an erosion control policy they had to adopt. They came back, county staff came back to the board. It was like 8 or 9 times. And every time there was, except for the last time, there was 3 county commissioners that said, this looks like it's more than what Marion County is doing. This looks like more than what the state law has asked for. How is this different? And it just continually wastes time. You need people in the land management division to understand this is what our policy is.
There are a lot of buildings that were destroyed during the Labor Day fires of 2020 that have not yet been rebuilt. Are there ways that you think the county and you as a commissioner, if you were elected and you were serving on the board, are there ways the county could help some of those folks jump through some of the land use hoops they've been experiencing?
Yes, definitely. That's kind of a complicated, long story type of topic,
Yeah.
but as soon as those horrific fires happened in 2020, the Oregon legislature created a process that streamlined rebuilding, and it was unanimous at the state legislature, and some of the counties that had affected homes started implementing that law as soon as it passed both the chambers. Lane County and Heather Buch held up that process until the rulemaking was adopted. And so, mind you, there was a window of time on which this streamlined process was allowed. So that held up the process for people that were retiring or that were trying to recover by months. You would think that the county would want to jump at the opportunity to do the recovery. I think there was also additional regulations that were put in that county staff seemed as though they needed to do, that were just extra roadblocks that someone who was recovering from the Holiday Farm fire of 2020 would have to just say that doesn't apply. But again, that's an extra step that they would have to do. It was a matter of like building up their land so that it was above a floodplain, I believe the question is there, or the answer. But again, I think it's about whether you want people to live outside cities or you don't want people to live outside cities. Commissioner Buch, I don't believe it wants to encourage any more living outside of city limits.
Almost 13 minutes in front of the 9 o'clock hour, East Lane County Commissioner candidate Jake Pelroy is with us this morning. Jake has just very recently announced that he's jumping into that race, so we're glad to be able to chat with him early on in his campaign. Just about 9 minutes in front of the top of the hour, East Lane County Commissioner candidate Jake Pelroy with us on our extended Beeper Show for a Tuesday morning. Jake, let's talk about the local economy. You kind of touched on it a little earlier, but there's been a lot of discussion around timber and what we might be able to recoup in terms of some jobs and some lost revenue there. But I don't think timber is we're never going to return to the glory days of pre-spotted owl times. So besides timber, what are some other things that you'd like to see us do here in Lane County to bolster growth?
Yeah, I mean anything, all of it. I'm not opposed to any industry. I believe you need to make it easier for business to operate. Mm-hmm.
How could you do that as a member of the county commission?
Well, first of all, don't try to raise the garbage fees. I'm going to keep on hitting that thing over and over and over again, because businesses pay a lot more in garbage than your average customer. And that increases the price at the menu or the price of whatever you're trying to sell. I think as a board of county commissioners, they're looking right now as a payroll tax. That's certainly not going to help out business in Lane County. It's all about priorities, and I am very pro business. I'm never gonna shy away from that. Grew up in a small business. My dad had some small businesses when growing up. I own a small business, so I think it's crucially important whether to do what they need to do is really difficult. So
how do you feel about putting a lot of emphasis on tourism?
I think it's important. I think it should be part of it. And I think there's been some good proposals on tourism throughout the years. I do think that there is a natural draw to Lane County. There's a lot of things to come and see in Lane County. You can just look at the East Lane district. I mean, South County here. There's a lot of cool. There's a vineyard up in Saginaw that's pretty neat. There's all the covered bridges. You guys have some great festivals, and then you could look to the Cascades. I mean, there's some things out there for people to check out, the Mackenzie River area, and then not to mention the coast. We have the coast, and we have some good aspects in Eugene as well with the University of Oregon sports and the track. I mean, those have been big economic drivers. We've spent a lot of money on some of those track events, but also there's been a lot of other people putting in money on those. So I think it's important. I want to weigh it all within context. I mean, tourism, it can have the same things happen to it as other parts of the economy, where people just decide not to spend money.
Right. I mean, the biggest issue with tourism, as I see it, is it's pretty cyclical. Here, for example, in downtown Cottage Grove, I've talked to a number of restaurateurs that depend on getting a lot of tourist traffic in the summer so that they can make it the rest of the year.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. And then you have hotels as well that have seasons to them. I think it's important to support them all. All the businesses.
As we pivot to something else here, because we're running out of time, it's no secret that we have a mental health crisis in the county, and of course the county's working on a stabilization center and some mobile crisis units. Do you have any thoughts on how we're dealing with that, what we're doing well, what we could do differently?
Yeah, I think
better.
I think the stabilization center is a necessary piece to the puzzle. I think the mobile units are critical as well. I think what I have fears about with some of those is extra regulations coming down so that they're not as effective, or they change how they operate. We had a program years ago, probably about 10-ish years ago in Lane County, where they took the frequent users of services, the people that got a lot of ambulance and a lot of police attention, and they said, we're going to put you in a building with counselors, and you're going to get some recovery, and you're going to be mandated to do these recoveries. Well, Measure 110 came around and made it so that they couldn't be held in to do the recovery, and it just completely devolved. We spent a lot of money on this facility, and it was not being used the way that it was intended, because there's some real recovery that needs to happen with people that are living on the streets, and it's not the best way to help them isn't to give them free things. They need service, and they need real recovery.
So there needs to be some accountability. Is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And we need to stop enabling these behaviors.
Yeah. Housing and homelessness, they're kind of connected, but they're also kind of different, because on the one hand you have the idea that we have a housing shortage. We need to find economical ways to create housing that people can afford. But yet for the folks that are on the street, and this kind of ties back to what we were just talking about, that maybe struggling with substance use disorders, mental health, combination thereof, and some of the undesirable side effects that creates. Where do you think the county should be in that whole discussion?
The housing and homelessness.
Yeah.
It's, I think it's a little bit of a misnomer on some of that. It's kind of like, well, they don't live in a home, so we need to give them a home. Mm-hmm. That seems very simple, but a lot of these people are coming in from out of state, and you would think that in other states, I know in other states, housing is cheaper. So why would they move to Oregon, where housing is more expensive? It's because it's easier to live on the streets in Oregon, and specifically in Lane County. I would focus on the recovery aspects. I would focus on that someone living outside on a sidewalk is not good for their recovery. It's not good for the people that are living there. It's not good for the person that has to walk by them. And so we got to help get them the services they need, but then also realize that we are just one county that has limited resources. What
are your thoughts about housing first, low barrier, those types of approaches?
Yeah, I mean those are some hot button key terms there. I would say that the housing first model has not worked in Oregon. I think there was a lot of hope initially because there was a ways to hold people in a home, similar to what I mentioned earlier, with conditions on why they were there, like to get the real recovery services. But just to open up a hotel and say you're living in here, I don't think that helps. So I think a lot of that has failed. But I think there's times where you have to make a decision in your life if you live on the streets to come into a low barrier situation. There needs to be a time period. Are you going to make a change in your life, or you're not going to make a change in your life? And I've spent some time at the Mission hearing about their programs, and I believe highly in what the Mission is doing, just to get that real recovery is extremely important.
All right. So, Jake, there's a question I like to ask office-seeking candidates. If you are successful in your election bid and you get the seat, how are you going to keep in touch with your constituents once your term in office begins to make sure that you're representing your constituents? And sometimes you're going to hear things that you agree with, and sometimes that you're going to hear things that you don't agree with. So how are you going to keep in touch with the folks?
Well, I'm going to be accessible. On my website right now, you have my phone number. I'm going to plan on having regular conversations with you, taking questions, but I'm also not afraid to have disagreement and tough conversations, because I've really believe that my identity is built in what Jesus has done for me, and the fact that if someone disagrees with something that I've done, I am able to just see them and take that in, and be okay with that.
And final question before we wrap things up. If people want to learn a little bit more about you and your candidacy, what is the best way to do that?
So I have a website. It's pelroy.com, and that's spelled PELROY.com. Should be pretty easy to find. on there you can learn more about me. You can see who's supporting me. You can find ways to help. You can call me.
Okay, very good. Jake, great to have you. Appreciate you spending some time with us this morning.
Thanks, Cameron. Always good to see you.
Jake Pelroy, who has now officially announced as a candidate for East Lane County Commissioner, and Bob Zybach is also a candidate, and we will chat with him right after the news. Stay with us.